Hi, and welcome to Family on Purpose. We are your hosts, Derek and Gina England. We are thrilled to be here with you to have a conversation about your family, because whatever your family does, we want you to do it on purpose. So we are here. We're going to talk about an exciting activity that Gina and I do. It'll be 21 years of marriage here in a few days. And for the better part of half of that, we've been spending at the end of every year getting together and specifically setting goals and planning for the upcoming year as a family. So what is that? What is family goal setting and planning is what we're going to answer in this first episode today. We've got a series of episodes planned for you, and we're going to talk through what it is and why it's important and how you and your family can do that. And I believe it is going to make a world of impact in your family, in your direction, and what you do as a family. To do that, we are joined today with Ashton Faulkner. She is the creative director at Family ID. She's been on the team for just over a year, and Ashton does not like to set goals. She recently revealed this to us, laid it out. This is really the first opportunity that she and her husband, Jordan, can get away at the end of the year. Last year, she was so new. This is her first full year with Family ID. She has many years of ministry experience, but this is the first one that she has the chance to get away and set family goals for next year. And for somebody who doesn't want to set any more goals, we've got to figure out how to convince her. So Ashton, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh. And also thank you for throwing me under the bus. And now I'm sure there's going to be just rapid comments coming in. Ashton, how dare you? Don't set goals.
Don't set goals.
Oh man. I'm so excited to talk about this with you. I know that we joke about it during the work week, like whenever we talked about it last week. And I had said this is something that actually just does, I don't want to do. We don't want to do it. And I think to some degree it's been because it does feel like another box I have to check off, and it feels like another number I got to hit. And I think even just viewing it from that perspective, it's like, I just don't want to do this. I just don't want to do this. And so, yes, this, the goal of this episode is that you guys, I want you to convince me to go home and tell Jordan, we're actually going to go through with this. We're going to do it. So, and I think to be able to do that, I just want to hear more about what it is, obviously, but how you guys do it and the process of that and what does that look like? And especially with kids, how do we include them? And so, yeah, let's get on it, because I really want to know. I want to know all the things.
Okay, well, I'll say this. I'll give you a little back history. It was late October or November of 2012. I remember setting in the back bedroom and setting some goals specifically related to finances. Because I think that's one of not that finances are easy, but as Dave Ramsey puts it, it's easy to tell when there is more month than there is money,
Yeah.
right? And
Good.
so Gina and I have been planners, goal setters, and specifically related to finances. I was setting some goals and was thinking, gosh, there's got to be more. If we're doing these goals, what other goals are there? And then I was introduced to Greg Gunn and Family ID at the end of 2012 at a men's retreat. And then we went through Family ID that following spring, 2013. And that's where we laid out values and mission and vision for our family. But something that Greg mentioned at that workshop is that he and his family got away every year, set goals, kind of planned for the next year. And so it developed this idea or concept of, hey, this is just the rhythm of life, getting away, setting goals. And I think it's so easy that we each individually set goals for ourselves. You grow up setting goals, or New Year's resolution is a normal thing.
Yeah.
Hey, this is one way that I want to grow and develop. But there's so much more power in setting goals as a family and having family alignment. So it was natural.
Yeah, and I think that's what it was for me too. This whole concept, this idea, and really since I came to Family ID, it's been a whole new world, so to speak. because I think it's natural. I think we assume that it's this natural thing that when you have a family, you're married, you have children, you're raising this group of individuals. It's like you would think that that is supposed to come natural. Like whatever I'm planning, it's for the family because I have a family. But I think where I get tripped up is it actually has felt very individualistic most of my life. Like it's like, no, I need to make sure I set these goals and I'm thinking about the hopes and dreams that I have and where I want to go. And I think whenever you propose this idea of, family goal setting, I think, I don't know, that was just really hard for me to even like, how do we even get there? Like, what do we, I don't know. It was just something that seemed so foreign to me. And so, um, I don't know. I think kind of where I sit today is like, it's really easy for me to write down all the things that I want to do and who I want to become. And I can even work out a plan for that. But then when I think about, well, how do I sit with my kids and tell them or even ask them, what are we going to do this year? Do we have the finance conversations with them? And obviously I'm joking, but that's what it feels like to me. It's like I just can't even conceptualize this whole idea. And so I think as we like move forward talking about this, what was the kind of the initial impact after you guys started doing this like for real? Like this is an annual event that we're going to do. Um what were some of the benefits or how did that impact and kind of transform your family setting? Because I'm guessing that's what happened because you've mentioned that to me before.
So I feel like at the onset of when we started, it just brought family alignment to our family. Hey, we are a team, and these are the team goals that we're all working towards. I felt like it was a beautiful thing in our family as far as, hey, we're all working together, and it wasn't
Connection, yeah.
right. And we can still work on things as individuals. Derek can have areas of growth that he wants, or myself, or areas of growth that we want for our children. But the fact that we're doing it together, working towards a common goal and a greater goal, I feel like has been very impactful, and so impactful to the point that we've been willing to do it the last 9 years because of the impact that it's had on us.
Yeah, I think it begins with not the goals. The goals are kind of arbitrary in the whole scheme of things. And what I mean by that is it begins with who is your family? Who do you want to be? And how do you get there? And so for us, after we went through Family ID, okay, now we had this vision of who we wanted to be. Hey, these are some of the aspects we want in our family. These are the relationships. This is the culture, the dynamic. This is the environment. These are some of the things that we want. Who do we want our kids to be? Who do we want to be? Who do we want to be as a family? Now you can reverse engineer it. So to your point, nobody likes setting goals for setting goals' sake.
Yeah, well, that's how I view it.
Yeah.
Like I'm like this, I'm just going to go do it. I don't want to make a list. And because then it means I have to pause and reflect.
That's right.
And there's a whole process that I like, and that just feels like a really big task that I'm just going to start doing the things today. But the problem is it again, that's individualistic. I'm not thinking about my whole family.
Right. Well, and I think for each of us, our lives reflect a list that we have in our brain. It's just not on paper. Hey, who do I want to be, or who do I want our family to be, if you've never processed that? But who do I want to be has a list of, well, I want to do this and this and this and this. Hey, I want to be responsible for our kids, so I will show up on time to pick them up from practice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's in there. Nobody ever wrote that down and said, in order to be responsible, I have to pick my kids up from practice on time. It's just innate.
And I think too, if I'm taking the time to reflect and plan something, that also really brings me to a vulnerable place because it means that I might have to actually look at the things that I haven't done yet that I've always wanted to. And even just as a family, like maybe it kind of enlightens us to we're not financially where we want to be. And those are hard things to face. They just are, especially like with everything that's going on in the world today. So I think there's like an avoidant spirit that happens.
That's exactly right. I was going to say an ostrich mentality, right? Hey, I would rather stick my head in the ground and pretend like nothing is wrong than actually look at it, evaluate it, and make a decision. I think when we do that, when we reflect and evaluate, and that's part of goal setting, and that's part of having a family vision, is we're faced with difficult choices all the way around. Either one, I decide I want that goal, that change, that relationship, that whatever it is, which is going to take hard work to get there.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Or two, I want that thing, but I decide not to go for it. So then therefore there's an internal struggle and wrestling all the time, knowing that you're not doing the things to lead to the goal that you really want, which brings dissatisfaction and missed expectations.
And that also sounds like we're not being obedient to God.
That's right.
Right.
Like those parallel. And I don't think that that's like by accident.
Which goes back to, I think the goals are arbitrary. Not really. I mean, they're important, but it begins with identity and who God calls you to be.
Yeah.
And so when you walk through that process, well, he's going to set the goals or the direction or the path leading on where he wants the destination to be. So, well, then the goals are natural.
Yeah. It's not a forced thing.
That's right.
It's like, we just know this is what our family needs.
That's right.
This is where our family needs to go. That's so good. Okay.
So
I'm becoming a little more convinced.
So for you and Jordan, right, it is not family goal setting and going through an annual rhythm of goal setting for the upcoming year is not one more task to do, one more thing to set aside and add to your to-do list that's never ending, and responsibilities are overwhelming, right? It's not that. It is, hey, where are we as a family going to be intentional next year?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, we say it at Family ID all the time, every family ends up somewhere, but few end up somewhere on purpose. So let's make sure that you're a family that ends up somewhere on purpose.
Yeah.
And if you intentionally design that up front,
right,
well, then you can start moving in that direction.
Yeah. When you can't live with purpose if you're not doing it on purpose. So yeah. Gosh, that's really good. All right. It's getting better. Okay. So I don't know. I do kind of like a shoulder shrug on this, on the, why is this important? Because I know it's important. I think, and man, this is a whole other conversation, I think, but I just had this thought of, I can know something. Someone can tell me all day, this is important, you should do it. And I think that I find myself so often going, but there's something internally within that I don't actually believe it, because if I believed it, I would do it. And so I think I want to hear more about, why is it important? Yes. But really like get into your beliefs about it and kind of where your heart is on this issue altogether. Because again, it's easy to have all these resources and people tell you that you should be doing something, and you know, goals are important. You really need to set a goal every year. But sometimes it's like, yeah, but I miss that goal almost every year, or I don't even finish it throughout the year. And so it becomes so belittled at that point. So just talk more about your heart behind it and your values and your belief system on this before we move on to kind of what it is, the process of it, I guess.
Okay. So my conviction for annual planning for our family comes from Psalm 90, verse 12, that tells us to teach us to number our days so that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And the scriptures are telling us, like, this is a prayer that we can pray. Lord, help us, teach me how to number our days. Because throughout scripture, it tells us, make the most of our time. And so as an act of obedience, my life is not my own. I want to ask God, what do you want for my life? And that excites me to do planning, because it's not my own ambitions. It's not what I want to do on a whim. It is prayerfully seeking the heart of God to see what his plan is for our family, and including us as a unit, a family unit, but also as individuals. And so I want my life to please God and not live for myself. And so this is one way that I can lay down my agenda and seek him for his good and perfect will for our life. And if I don't take the time to seek after his heart, then I'm not going to know what his plan for me is. But I can know from just the basics of scripture that he's telling, he's giving us a prayer. Teach us to number our days. Our days are numbered. They are. And I want to make the most that I can with this life that he's given me and accomplish the purposes that he has for me.
Oh man, we can be done now.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, her answer is beautiful and perfect and right, spiritual. Mine's a little bit more pragmatic on, hey, goal setters, like tough teams win, goal setters win. That like, I want to win.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more selfish on that. But I think that what you're saying is so important about how we do have to align our spirits with God's spirits and his will for our lives. And I think to your point, Ashton, when you ask about, hey, shoulder shrug on, I don't want one more thing to do, one more list. I believe it's more about who, not what. Who are we becoming, not what are we doing? Yes, there will be things that we do to become who we want to become or who God has called us to become, but it's less about what tasks are we doing and what are we going through. And it's more about who is he calling us to become? Who do we want to become? And then I think internally, we all obviously have priorities. And our lives reflect those things that are important, urgent. That's what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'll go back to the example, picking up the kids from sports, from practice. That is important and that is urgent. There's a very specific time measurement on that, right? I'm either late or I'm on time. But I think sometimes it's easy to avoid those things that are important, not urgent.
Right.
It doesn't feel like an estate plan is urgent.
There's no pressure.
There's no pressure.
Until I'm dying.
So push it off, push it off, push it off, right? And so I think it's the same thing with this of, hey, getting our family on the same page, moving the same direction towards the same goals is very important. I don't know anybody that would say, oh yeah, our family being spread 5 people living 5 different lives, that's exactly what we want. Nobody's going to verbally say that.
Right.
So it's very important.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel urgent. Well, I can do that after this other thing that needs to be taken care of, after this other thing that needs to be taken care of. But it is one of the most important. Oftentimes at Family ID, we say that there are 3 things that we can do to create a strong family identity and multi-generational vision.
Yeah.
And one of those is understanding that our family is our first and most important priority.
Yeah. You tell me that weekly. Like if not 4 times a week. So yes. And I'm so grateful. I'm not saying that in a way that's like, I have this boss that keeps like making me put my family first.
That's right. Gosh, he's got to be man. That'd be tough.
I'm so grateful. But really like, and I totally interrupted you, so I apologize. I want to come back to that. I do want to speak this thought that I just had. So it's a perspective issue because when I think about it, as you two were talking, something truly did click of like, this is not about doing. And I feel like that is so relevant even today. My gosh, like phones in our face all the time. And because there's always going to be something to do. And there's always it really is never ending. And so whenever I think through that, it's like, okay, if I'm viewing this though from the perspective of honoring God, there's just no debate. There is no hesitancy. There's no, even if it doesn't feel good, there is still this like confidence and peace that comes with it of like, this is the right thing. And so, yeah, like the perspective, it's all in how we view it.
It is.
I think there can be such an excitement about it when you seek God and God says, this is the way. You can have this anticipation and this hope about going in that way, because there's times where we can just spin our wheels when we're doing it in our own flesh and our own motivations. I was telling Derek the other day, after a conversation that I had with you, Ashton, it was just kind of, how do we differentiate between what's a goal that we set for ourselves or what's one that God gave us? And I think right now in the world, just the identity crisis and the competition of trying to make a name for yourself, because it's not just within your home or your school or your corporation that you work for. It's like, no, I'm trying to be seen on social media with millions of people. And so I was telling him, hey, there's just probably maybe a simple litmus test of like, okay, this goal that I want to do, we talked about running a marathon.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's talk about
and
that.
I never want to do that, but I think we can ask ourselves the question, like, would I be okay if no one in the world other than the people that I live with know that I ran that marathon? And if we're not okay with that, maybe that's just a little test in our spirit to say, okay, maybe you're not doing this with the right motivation. If you're wanting to blast it on social media, here's my accomplishment, are you doing something more for God's glory? Or can you keep that to yourself? When we get to partner with the Lord on something, how exciting. And we can count on these things that we're going the direction that he wants. I don't know that a marathon is a direction that he wants for me. I hope it's not. But it's exciting to get to seek him, because I don't want outside of his will. Like, I want your good and perfect will. And when we look at goal setting is, maybe it's over the course of the next 12 months, but really the work that we're putting into this, they're investments that go way beyond this next 12 months.
That it's kids.
5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road. What can we do for God's kingdom? And the investments that we put into our family, it's not just a shallow look at the next year ahead. It's just looking with longevity in hopes that even future generations are changed because we're seeking God, because we're coming to him. Yeah. So it's so much bigger than just the next year ahead.
How's that for important?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I know,
like,
literally, we can be done. This is it.
When you put it that way, is there anything more important? Right?
Well, because like how many people like push back? Oh my God. I feel like this would have been something like, well, my personal goals are important. Like it feels like such a sacrifice, I think, at times. Or I worry like I'm idolizing my family now and obsessing over what my kids are doing. Like it's crazy. I know that sounds crazy, but that is a lot of people that view it that way, of like, my marriage is not going to define me. My family's not going to define me. And it's almost like, I think in certain scenarios, yes, they're okay. That's fair. Like we can say that. However, when we're talking about this though, it's like an honor to sacrifice everything for my kids. Right. Like I don't even have to think about it. Like, and so I think that was something you really encouraged me with the other day. It's like, well, people are going to push back to that. Like you're sacrificing your hopes and dreams, to serve and to submit. And it's just like, my gosh, that is so the opposite of Christ.
Right. And I think that is the counterfeit that the enemy tries to sell us. Instead of a blessing, it's a curse. Like, oh, well, I've sacrificed my desires, my dreams. No way. Like if we look at it through the lens of, this is such a blessing, this is an investment for my future, just like we would invest in our financial future, when we can invest in relationships here with our spouse or with our children, how exciting is that? Like, my daughter's only 16, but we were at the beach a few weeks ago, and we were watching multi-generational families out there. So we might see a grandmother with her daughter with a baby stroller. And every time that we would pass one of these multi-generational families, I verbally spoke to Sawyer that blessing over us. This is going to be you and I one of these days, right? That Daddy and I are so excited to go on vacations with you and your family, and to be a blessing to you and to your spouse, and just so good. Unleashing that vision and that forward thinking in them. But I know in order for that dream to come to fruition, I have to make those investments now. And I am willing to lay down my life for that, because that is a legacy. Yeah. This is generations to change. This is teaching Sawyer how to be a mom and
with intentionality,
on
purpose.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And Derek's teaching Jack how to be a husband and a man. And so when we can change that lens to, this is a blessing, I get to do this, I get to serve the number one ministry in our lives that we'll ever have, it radically changes the way that we make our decisions. It's no more about self. It's about the whole.
Yeah. So good.
Well, I think there's a lot there to unpack in the sense of, James 3:16 says, where there is selfish ambition, there are all kinds of vile and demonic behaviors. And so I think, hey, let's eliminate self-ambition in this.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, what you're saying is right, babe, in that, hey, this is our first and most important ministry. This in your home is where discipleship is going to take place. We cannot outsource. We can't contract discipleship for our family. We can't outsource or contract somebody to do our quiet time for us. We can't outsource or contract our relationship with God. And so we have to take ownership and understand, hey, the home is the most important place for discipleship. The most important place where our kids and future generations are going to create a foundation of their identity. And if we see it that way, well, then it becomes one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in our lives. It would be a hollow victory if we spend our entire lives even doing ministry for other families.
Oh my gosh.
And every other family in the world comes to Christ, and we get to heaven one day, we walk through the pearly gates, and we look around and realize our family didn't make it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a hollow victory, and they would feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Our family, your family, is your first and most important priority. And when we recognize that, then, well, if that's our top priority, what's the natural step?
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's be a little bit intentional.
Right.
Let's be deliberate about what we're doing in and with our family on at least a yearly basis.
Yeah.
If not monthly or quarterly or weekly or daily, like let's just start with big stuff.
Which, real quick, so you're telling me, and I'm pretty sure you are, it's like these don't have to be like extravagant goals. Like I understand that like there's more of us. So in my mind, I'm like, man, these goals have to be huge. There's so many hands in the pot. But it's like this can be as small as we're gonna live out our mission statement this year. Let's find ways to do that.
Right.
Hey, what do we want to focus on next year? What are two things? I mean, I was talking to somebody else the other day, and she and her husband don't have kids yet. And I was explaining and rolling out this concept of, hey, you guys need to, towards the end of the year is a great time to do it. If it rolls into the beginning of next year, no problem. There's no definite time frame on it, but you guys need to do some family goal setting. And, same question as you had. Hey, what does that even mean? What does that look like? Okay. You and your husband just get away or take some time and think about, hey, if we could do one or two things, one or two priorities over the next year, what would those focus areas, what would those priorities be? And just pick one or two.
Yeah. Because I'm not kidding. Like when I think about this, I'm like, okay, there's 10 areas.
It'd be real easy,
we have
right?
to get better in.
Sure.
And I also view it from like, we are not good enough. And I'm being kind of flippant with my verbiage, but it's like truly, I look at it as like, here's everything that we need to be better at because we sucked at this last year. And that's terrible to view it like everything needs to be restored and cleaned up and renovated and rip up all the carpet. But that's where my mind goes as somebody that does feel called to restoration and engaging with people in that way, like helping them in that way. But it's like, again, that feels monumental. There's like 10 different areas and like, that's exhausting just to think about.
I think anybody and everybody can start small on this. So first, there is no framework in our brains for this. Hey, family goal setting and planning. Well, no, there's not a box. There's not a framework. There's nothing that goes in there. If I was to talk about sub sandwiches, we all have a bucket in our brain for what a sub sandwich is, what it looks like, tastes like, but nothing in here talks about what is family goal setting and planning. It's just empty.
Right.
So we have to build that framework. And the easiest and best way to begin is, hey, for you and Jordan, if you had to pick, this is a real answer, not rhetorical. If you had to pick two things over the next 12 months that you would hope to get better and we'll talk in a later episode, better is not a target, better is not a goal, but it's at least a starting point. Hey, if you had to pick 2 things that your family could get better at, what would they be?
Oh man. I mean, my initial like knee-jerk reaction is one of them is finances.
Okay.
But even to that point, that feels like if I were to break that down in just real quick in a couple of things, it's like budgeting, saving, investing even. But then when I think about it from the kids' perspective, it's bringing more of an awareness to generosity.
Okay.
So then another big one would be, as if finances aren't enough.
Right.
I think the next one would be, like quality time. Like I think sometimes we think having a movie night on the couch, and it's not to say that that would not be perfect for another family, but for us, it's become the default. Like what's the new movie or what's the new thing? And I think that requires so little of us is kind of where I've been awakened to as I've like started praying over all of this and not wanting to do it. That's kind of where I feel God, that's where I hear him speaking to me is like, it's not like a condemning thing or anything, of course, but it's just this like awareness of like, that requires so little of us to sit on the couch and munch on popcorn and watch a movie. And I think what I want is I want to know my kids and I want to get to know Jordan 5 years into marriage. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go on a trip? Like, what would you, if you could do anything and money wasn't an option, what would you do? Like, I think there's a sense of we've crossed this 5-year threshold this year and we're a blended family. And so I feel like I just want more. I want to know them more. That's just the best way that I can put it. And so I think quality time would be the second one.
So, and that's all that's how you can begin. Hey, sounds like over the next year, hey, let's be more intentional on our finances and intentional on our time. Now we can put all kinds of stuff around that, right?
Yeah.
But if that's all you came down with, and everybody in the family was together on that page and circled them up around the table. Okay, guys, we've all talked and this is what we've decided. The next year is going to focus on being intentional with our finances and intentional with our time. What does that mean to you guys? What do you think we should do? How would you do that?
Good. Yeah.
Like, that in itself is family goal setting and planning because it makes the family the top priority and you're getting alignment in the home. In understanding, hey, we are all moving towards these goals together at the same pace. Right. We're all aware of it. And so let's get some alignment and momentum in the same direction. It could be as simple as that.
It's really good.
I agree with Derek wholeheartedly. And I love the simplicity of just the 2 things. I was probably even thinking, my brain thinks a lot simpler than his does. I was just thinking like a blank piece of paper. Hey, like show up to the Father, Lord, what is it that you have for us in this year? And it can be one thing or the 2 like you had, or it could be 10 or whatever, but it doesn't have to be something that's performance based because you look at a checklist and an annual planning checklist and it includes how many books that you want to read and all of this stuff. Like that just may not be in God's will for you. Books are great. But doing it for the sake of checking off a list is not great. And so just the simplicity of coming to the Father with a blank slate and open hands and saying, I don't even know. I don't know what you want, but I want to know. Would you reveal that to me? And just seeking his heart on that and just knowing that something beautiful will come of that. So I think as we prayerfully seek him, he reveals that goodwill for us. And then, the word also tells us, hey, test everything back to him. Know his good and perfect will from the book of Romans. And so we can have some harebrained idea pop into our heads, but take the time, go back. Father, is this from you? Yeah. Is this what you want for us? And have your spouse included. Hey, I feel like I've heard this idea. I don't even know where it came from. I don't know if it's left field, my flesh, the Holy Spirit, whatever it is. Hey, can you pray on my behalf for this?
Yeah.
I think when we seek him, he'll fill that up for us. And it doesn't have to include 10 different things. It can include.
It's humorous to me that being intentional takes intentionality, right? Like, hey, okay, in order to do what you're saying, you have to take time, make space, pray, receive from the Lord, and then work together as a family. And I think that in itself is one of the greatest lessons that we can learn. Is to be intentional, make space, make time. What I appreciated and thought about when you talked about your two things, both of those are where we as people spend. We spend money and we spend time.
Yeah. How you think of that?
Yeah, it's true.
And so if we're intentional about where we spend our money and our time, man, that would be and it's encouraging and exciting to stop, pause, and think, oh man, if we were intentional with our finances and intentional with our time, what could be the benefits of that 12 months, 24 months, 36 months from now? Oh, what could happen? What could God do with that in 3 years? And then, it makes this process a lot less daunting.
Right.
And a whole lot more exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Because if there's a vision creates passion.
Yeah.
And now you're excited and passionate about going into the planning because you know what the benefits are down the road.
Yeah. That's so good. I had a million thoughts when you were just talking because all good things, which is good. That means we're getting somewhere. I'm being convinced right now. I think something that came to mind was, two things. The first thing is family goal setting. Like, I think what it is, it feels uncertain. I've never done it before with the family. It feels uncertain. And because I don't have certainty, it feels like anything can go wrong. And I'm the person that creates like a plan A and a plan B and a plan C all the way through the alphabet. And so when I think, I don't know, I just immediately put it all in a box and thought it has to look this way. And so I think even the blank sheet of paper idea, that feels so freeing. To think about it, letting it be whatever it's going to be. And then that's where faith comes in and totally allows, it enables God to have his way. And so the second part of that, when I don't have quality time with Jordan or the kids, and because we're blended, time with the kids already is cut in half. And that's something that we've really had to grow in. And how do we process that and keep moving forward and be connected as a family for the time that we do have and during the time that we have. And so when I think about those two things, I'm like, oh man, like, I don't know. I just was kind of awakened to this thought of like, that's where I feel most insecure is when we're surprised by our house flooding.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
And we haven't had connection time. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but I think about my own upraising or my own upbringing. And I think about what if Parker and Nolan like don't like us in 10 years because we didn't spend enough quality time. Like, that's so ridiculous. Right. But I don't know. They're those two areas when they are not consistent or we're surprised by something or there's a rift, I feel so insecure as just in general. And that, then I do go into control mode. No, we are going to sit together on the couch. And
Right.
We will sit here and look at each other.
Yes.
Until
and then
our
no one's
time
spending
bucket.
a dime.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
You need to ask and write it down before you.
Okay. So just off the cuff, as I'm listening to you, one, I don't think that there's any shame whatsoever in feeling vulnerable or insecure with your finances. I think as a woman, that's kind of one of our primary needs. I am secure. I have a roof over my head. I know where I'm waking up tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think that's just that innate, we need to feel secure. So I don't think there's any shame in that. And I think with your circumstances of the blended family and having your children's time with you already cut, your insecurity there also is warranted, and it's not shameful or, hey, irrational.
Yeah.
I don't believe that about you at all. So what I see is God bringing something to your mind. Hey, the finances, these are triggers for you, finances and intentional time. And so I believe that as God leads you, as you seek his face, as Jordan seeks his face, God, what do we do on our finances? That actually God's going to bring so much beauty from this and bring so much security through this. Because when we don't have those parameters and we spend, whatever, all willy-nilly, in a month or two, we're going to come back. Okay, where are we at now on the finances?
Everything's on fire.
But when hey, I'm working within this budget, it gives a sense of freedom. It gives a sense of peace. It creates the margin that you can give to others. And I think that when maybe you put a small parameter, and you don't have to be legalistic with your children, but hey, I don't know if you have them for 7 days or what amount that day is.
It's 7. Yep.
7 days.
On,
okay.
7 off.
Hey, Friday nights or one night a weekend, we're going to do movie night. Otherwise it's puzzles or game night or whatever. I feel like, and I'm that way too. Like, it's easy to do the movie night. It's really easy. And especially depending on your day, if you're worn out, like, oh my gosh, that's really the only answer. But when you are purposeful, like this whole podcast is a family on purpose. Like, okay, hey, the purpose of tonight is blank. I feel like that is going to alleviate those insecurities because, hey, you've poured into them and you've had that face-to-face time. It doesn't have to look like 30 minutes of in their face. Maybe it's a sweet little conversation that you get to have with your daughter.
Right.
Hey, I'm going to braid her hair and I want to know what the best part of her day was.
Oh my gosh, we just started learning to crochet.
Okay.
So we tried to do that last night. It was a disaster. She was so angry. She could not figure it out.
It does provoke some frustration.
I was like, well, this was a fail.
Yeah, she's normal. But you know what? You're going to laugh about it.
We did this morning. It's great.
And then when you get a moment with your son, so it can be in little moments that you get those nuggets of, they know that you're a mama that is focused on them. I love you. I'm engaged with you. I'm here and I'm present. So you have my full focused attention. Yeah. I think letting down, it has to look a certain way. And I do think not resigning to a movie night every night is a great idea. But some nights are fun, like, hey, it's snacks and movie and make it a fun thing. Maybe it's a conversation afterwards, a post-movie conversation.
Yep.
Hey, what did you think about that character? What good, you can always make something intentional and purposeful out of it. But I do think that with those insecurities, I feel like beauty and security is going to come from them as you seek God on them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good.
Do you have anything you want to add?
Oh, I got all kinds of stuff.
Okay, go for it.
Let me have it.
Okay, so I think what you're touching on is incredibly important. In that, for what we've read and found is that for most women, love and security are their highest needs. Yeah. And security comes in financial security, relational security, emotional security, spiritual security, and physical security. So what you're touching on are financial and relational security.
So I'm not crazy. This makes sense.
This makes complete total sense.
Right.
And so, but what it is, hey, whatever you do it on purpose.
Yeah.
And so, hey, if these are two areas that are focus areas over the next year, let's be intentional and plan ahead of it. Like you said, Gina, hey, we can have a movie night, but guys, this is why we're not having a movie night every night.
Right.
And I think when a family gets together and everybody's voice is heard, and you say it and Jordan says it and the kids get their input and everybody agrees, hey, let's be intentional this next year on finances and quality time, then everybody's on board.
Yeah.
You know why you're doing it. You know how you're going to do it. And I'll give you the grace and the freedom. Plans can change.
I know. I never think they can.
Right.
So if you set something today for the next 12 months,
right,
and 90 days in, you go, guys, this is not working. We need 2 movie nights a week or whatever.
Yeah.
Change it.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Right.
Let it evolve.
Let it evolve.
Yep. Yeah. Real quick, the question that I was going to ask you, because you had mentioned everyone has a voice, talk about that. Why? I know that I can talk to Parker and Nolan. I can talk to Parker and Nolan about, I feel comfortable. We do have the relationship where I can say, because I feel insecure in these areas, and they're 9 and 11. So obviously I would say that a little bit differently, but, I think to a parent that maybe doesn't feel that, like doesn't feel like they can just say those things and it's like a safe space, but also it'll be received. It's like, do you think that it is okay, or do you believe it's like the right thing to do to be vulnerable and let them in on these are stressors. Like these are hard for me not to worry about, or not, obviously especially if they're younger, like Parker and Nolan, I'm not going to give them every single detail as to why, or even because there's lots of history there, right? Like upbringing, there's lots of variables. But yeah, I mean, what would you say to a parent that's like, I can't say that to my kids?
So I think it's on an individual basis, Ashton. So I think
okay.
one, what is age appropriate, and two, maturity level for whatever that you're sharing. And how, okay, would this create insecurity in them? Would this be a slippery slope for them? And I think that it's for individuals. So maybe you're able to tell your daughter in a way that you're not able to tell your son, or vice versa. But I always think when there's that why aspect, that because we're doing this, because it seems as though it gets just everyone on the board for the team.
Yeah.
And,
I'm not just telling you what to do.
That's right.
Right.
It's like, that's right.
Right. And I think that you're also, I think it can give a child a sense of like, okay, I can handle X amount of information. Let's say that maybe one Christmas was an extremely lavish Christmas. And then let's say this year, its budget is not the same. I think that depending on the age of the children, their maturity level, and something that's not going to cause your kid to be fretting.
Here's all my lunch money.
Right? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But you could say, hey, I just want to let you know this year, Dad and I have mapped out the budget, and you may feel like you're receiving fewer gifts. You're not receiving any fewer love. I can tell you that.
Right.
But Christmas is going to be a little smaller this year because the Lord has led us to this decision. And I believe that through this decision, we will be better off in the future of it.
That's so good. Yeah.
And so for me, it's a by child, by age, maturity. Will this be something that would lead them into a fear or an insecurity? And so you have to protect their hearts and protect their minds. But definitely when they know, hey, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it, I think that it gives them understanding, and it gives them the, okay, I'm doing this because.
That's so good.
So you read my notes. That's what you're saying. Yeah. It's the, I was going to say, I wrote it down too. It's the why or the what. Hey, Sawyer does not understand why she has to take Algebra 2.
I don't either.
It's true.
It's true. Why am I ever going to use this? Right. So there's a resistance towards doing it. But if there was a clear, hey, you said you wanted to be an engineer. Well, you're going to need this. Okay. Well, then I'll trudge through Algebra 2 because I know it's going to help me in my career. And so it's the same why or what. And I think to Gina's point, let it evolve over time. Hey, in your family or in families of people listening, maybe you've never invited the kids into it. Maybe this whole concept is brand new, and the best way to start is just with you and your spouse. Hey, you guys set some goals. This is what we're going to focus on. This is why we're going to focus on it. This is how we're going to focus on it. Let's all be a team and work on this. And it might be very, very small for the first year. And then as you have success and you have traction in that momentum and movement, let's bring some other voices in. Hey, but start small. It depends on what's right for your family.
And every family's different.
And every family's completely different.
Yes.
Every child.
Every child. And so there's thousands of dynamics, millions of dynamics. And so it is, hey, pray, see where the Lord's leading you, walk into step 1. And it might just be, hey, I have some ideas for the next year. Can you and I work on this next year? And then you move through. And I think it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. The goals themselves are important, but they are not the goal. The goal is not to set goals. The goal is to become who God's calling you to be, which all begins with family identity. Hey, this is who we are, and this is where we're going. Now we can work everything into this and why we're planning. If we want to go there, or if God's calling us there, we have to do these things to grow and develop.
when you realize like, okay, your primary relationship, which you already know, is your relationship with the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And then the husband-wife relationship comes in next. Then it's going to be the children. And so I think it's important, like, okay, the children are not in the driver's seat on the annual plans. And we can invite them into certain aspects of it versus like, and kids, you know, like,
what do you want to do this year?
Right.
Because they're not the authority. The Lord is the authority.
That's right.
Your husband is the authority. You're coming in next. And then the kids. And so as a practical example, you might, you know, give a blanketed overview. Hey, mom and dad are working on finances and being intentional with our finances and our time this year. Guess what, guys? We have $50 every month to spend on family fun. I'd like to invite you two in to some family fun ideas with us. Can you say, can you give me a handful of ideas that you want to do throughout the year? And we can see if we can work these into the budget and how we can have purpose time through them together. And so just making that designation of, yes, we're going to invite our children into this, but at an age appropriate way where they are not the authority. And yes, we definitely welcome them. We're not going to crush their spirits, but I definitely think it's better. Hey, mom and dad are praying.
That's good.
We've gotten the vision from the Lord. We're walking out this in wisdom. And then, there's certain aspects. Invite them in on this.
That's good. That's where I was going, was it really is like we're setting the example.
Yep.
Like that's
you have to.
what it comes down to. Yeah.
I think it's a great example. Babe, here's $50. How do we want to spend the $50? Everybody gets a voice on that.
Right.
But you're not putting them in charge of the budget.
Right. Right. Right.
That's so good.
Well, here's one thing that I do know. I know that you and Jordan can do this. And in fact, every family that's listening can do this. Now we have an idea of what it is and how to begin. And we have a framework in our brain as to, okay, what is family goal setting and why is it important? And I believe wherever your family is, not geographically, but wherever you are in relationship or development or living intentionally or not intentionally, wherever you are along that spectrum, you can begin where you are and to start small and start with some small goals and some small direction. But the Lord is with you and he will guide you and encourage you on what and how. There's probably already something stirring in your spirit or your heart about, hey, I know I need to take care of this, or I know he's calling me to move more towards this. So wherever you are, start today. And we're going to come back in more episodes and talk about exactly how we do that. Hey, what does a day look like? If we're really going to go all the way in, how do we do it in a whole day or a weekend? Or what types of goals do we need to set? What have worked well for our family? What have not worked so well for our family? Where did we bomb it? And we're going to talk about how we go through it, more about why it's important, and we'll go through the entire process. So thanks for joining us at Family on Purpose. We are excited that you are here and can't wait for the next episode.